that keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time, and we got some training camp news today. There's been a ton of news coming from 49ers training camp. The 49ers have made a lot of roster moves. I'm Anthony Robertson, and here with me is the Horst, Alex Horst. What's up, Horsty?
It's good to be somewhere.
And Alex Sasania. How's it going, Alex?
Going well, and I agree with you. It is good to be somewhere, man. All right, let's get this thing going.
All right, some of the moves have had a direct correlation to injuries, and others have not. So let's get into some of these moves. First off, we had the breaking news that came through right before recording that Brandon Aiyuk has left training camp practice with a hamstring injury. There's not a lot of information on it, but Horst, what are you thinking? Is this scary?
It's scary after the injuries to Hurd and James and all those guys. It's a scary proposition that we might be without Aiyuk as well, because by all accounts, Aiyuk has been having a great camp. Mayoko said that he looked like their best receiver already. So it hurts anytime you lose a high first-round pick and before you even play a game. That's not good. Let's hope that it's just a strain or a tweak and that he's back up to full speed here within a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's terrifying. We're seeing a bunch of reports too now about other guys, how they're having essentially what they're calling maintenance days, where they're just slowing guys down and being like, hey, you've taken a lot of snaps, hey, you've taken a lot of reps, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit. I think this is probably going to make this a more daily occurrence for their big name guys, especially, and unless you have to actually run them and see more of them. I'm hoping to God that this is not anything big, especially with the Jalen Hurd stuff. Debo potentially not being ready for week one. The last thing we need is another big weapon at the receiver spot that already seems pretty, people would say, is low talent-wise, or in terms of just being able to prove themselves. There's not a lot there yet. I would love to be able to have Brandon Aiyuk week one to be able to see if he's the complement to Debo that we're looking for. If he's not ready, this is not a great start. Not a great start for the offense.
This is scary because with hamstring injuries, you never know when it can flare back up. So they're definitely going to have to show caution. I'm hoping that it's something very, precautionary and that it's not anything serious. But I'm really concerned because if it's a pulled hamstring, he's out for a while. And I can't imagine losing another weapon. You already lost Jalen Hurd, and then now Brandon Aiyuk. You're starting to kind of get down there. I mean, then the 49ers have to think about bringing someone else in. And Horst, the Jalen Hurd thing kind of came out of nowhere, kind of tweaked it. What did you think when you first heard Jalen Hurd was out for the year with the ACL?
I'm not going to lie, my heart sank when I heard Jalen Hurd got hurt, because Jalen Hurd was a guy that I really thought was going to have a big year. He clearly was in Kyle Shanahan's plans both last year before he got injured and this year. When Shanahan gave the press conference, you could see the hurt in his eyes that he wasn't going to have him. Maybe it was just feeling bad for Jalen himself, after all the work he put in this offseason. But that one hurt because he can do so much. And by all accounts, he was back. He was in great shape. He was looking great. It's unfortunate that it happened. I was pretty upset about that one.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing what he was going to look like coming off that injury. Everything that we had been reading, everything that we've been hearing from Shanahan and anyone within the 49ers organization, it seemed like they were super high on what this guy potentially was going to be doing this year, and the potential and the upside and just the ceiling for him. And so to hear what initially just sounded like some sort of foot injury turn out to be an ACL injury was just devastating. It's just heartbreaking. because you hate to see a guy who they took and that seemed like they were extremely high on, and after the injury last year, like sitting there going, all right, well, is there going to be something? Is there going to be something with him that this is a big bounce back story, a big comeback story? How much do you want to invest in this kid and his development and growth, and to see it come to a halt before we even get to see him play a game again for a second straight year? It just, you feel for him, you feel for the organization. It's sad, and now it puts more pressure on guys like Pettis and Taylor. This is the year that they're going to definitely need to now step up. With Debo on the shelf, potentially Aiyuk on the shelf, and Hurd out indefinitely for the rest of the year. This is like the all-in piece for these two. These two have to show out. They have to come up and step up big. If they don't, I don't know how we can justify keeping them on the roster going forward if they're not going to be crucial pieces for this team. They're going to have to play big roles this year.
Yeah, Kyle had a specific role set for Jalen Hurd, and he was really excited to get that going. I know he had it last year, and they had the injury, and he wasn't really able to do it. And then with Debo out, you still had Jalen Hurd that could fill in and do the things that Debo did as far as running the ball and doing stuff out of the backfield. So he would have taken some of that stress off. But now you just can't do that. So you eliminate parts of the playbook. Yeah, there's still going to be parts they could still do because of Jerick McKinnon. Thank God Jerick McKinnon's healthy. He can alleviate some of the, pressure of having a receiver to catch the ball in the backfield. I think the 2-minute drill is going to be the Jerick McKinnon show now. It was going to be the Jalen Hurd show because you couldn't really match up different personnel groupings. He could run the ball out of the backfield because he's a trained runner, or he could catch the ball. So there was a lot more possibilities with Jalen Hurd, but now it'll be Jerick McKinnon show. So I think there are ways around it. I think it's disappointing, and 2 years of not really knowing. I think he's a guy 49er fans are the most hyped for, just to see what he can do. So we're gonna have to wait until 2021 to see, what can possibly happen with Jalen Hurd.
With the 49ers losing Hurd and having so many other receivers out with injuries, they signed Jaron Brown. What do you think about that signing, Alex?
Just precautionary, essentially. I mean, he's had 8 years in the league, 1,500 career receiving yards, 16 career touchdowns, and a 55% catch rate. Nothing about him is super standout or special. He's always kind of he's played more like of a possession, deep threat kind of role with every team he's been on, from Arizona to Seattle. So it's just a depth thing. They're just trying to get another big, tall wide receiver in there who can go up in space and catch the ball at a fairly decent rate. There's nothing special about a 55% catch rate. I mean, it's about what Kendrick Bourne is around. Kendrick Bourne, I think, is a little bit higher. I think it's like 64% or something like that. So nothing about it is like crazy. It's just a precautionary depth thing. I think with this Brandon Aiyuk thing, though, now we're probably going to see a bigger signing name, someone with some actual oomph behind the name, like maybe potentially a Des Bryant or something like that, if this turns out to be serious. But Jaron Brown, just depth, another body in there to push the young guys and make sure that they're playing at a high level. Because if they aren't, a crafty veteran like him who's been in the league knows how to make a roster and get himself onto a field. If the young guys aren't doing it, he'll find a way in. But I doubt that'll happen, Ant.
I like that they signed him. It happened right after the Jalen Hurd injury. So, I mean, they had him in there within like 12 hours, and they were ready to get him through the precautions and get him on the field. Just with the size and the speed, at least he's a legitimate threat. He's played in the NFL. It doesn't mean he's going to make the roster, but at least he is a possibility in case there's some sort of an injury, or you never know how a player is going to stand out in a different offensive scheme. So there's always that chance. But the 49ers needed to make a move. They made it, and let's see how it pans out. I think with the Hurd injury, now it's more likely for Tavon Austin or J.J. Nelson to make the team. And the Brandon Aiyuk, depending on how serious it is, you might see both of those guys make the roster now, which I didn't think was going to happen last week.
Jaron Brown, that signing doesn't really move the needle for me at all. I get it. He's a veteran. He's played several years in the NFL. He's a great guy to have in camp because he can help your receivers. I'm sure he's a smart guy. He's played 7 years in the NFL. But if he's one of your receivers that's on the field, you're probably in trouble.
I'm in danger.
He's not. He's definitely a bottom end of the roster type guy. So I'm not that excited about it. I think, like you guys were saying, if Aiyuk is out for an extended period of time, they need to bring someone else in. That's the way I feel about it, because they'll be down two of their probably top three receivers then with Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel if they both miss significant time.
Oh, you scared me there. My goodness. Well, since you're here, let me remind you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, you can hit that bell notification down there, and you'll get notified anytime we post a video here on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify if that's more your speed. Link will be down in the description below. Enjoy the rest of the video. So, some nervous moments in camp this week, especially with starting nose tackle DJ Jones, who left to practice with a shoulder injury. The injury update is that his shoulder's fine, but he's in concussion protocol. So the real question, Ant, is how important is DJ Jones to this 49ers defense?
Huge. I mean, he may be one of the most important players on the defensive line to the defense, because when he plays, he really does a good job of disruption. And nothing has been further from the truth than in camp this year. He has been dominating the centers, dominating the guards, and the pressure that he can put on from that spot. I still remember him just mowing over the Seattle center last year, just blowing him up. Russell Wilson didn't have a single chance to do anything.
3rd and 2. And look at the middle of that defensive line just collapse home. DJ Jones with the sack.
And so he's important because I think he's really going to step out of the shadow of the other guys and make an impact this year. I think this is his year to shine. It's a contract year, so he's going to play like crazy. And I think that we need him to play well. And I think his pass rushing skills are so good that he can be in there on 3rd down. And a lot of nose tackles can't do that. A lot of people would be pulling him out, but he's a very solid player. I was very nervous when I heard that he had hurt his shoulder. I don't like to see players in concussion protocol, but I'm definitely glad it's not some sort of a season-ending injury from the shoulder. So that's good news for us.
Yeah, DJ Jones is very important to this defense. I don't know if there is a player you could pick out and say that guy's more important than DJ Jones. That's how big of a deal I think he is. When he went down last year towards the end of the year, the difference was noticeable in the defensive line. Again, he is a good pass rusher for a nose guard, I agree, but especially against the run. It was noticeable, them not holding at the point of attack right there as well. He's a big-time player, and I think he's, like you said, I think I'm ready for him to have a breakout year this year. Honestly, he had a breakout year last year until he got injured, but that's a guy that would be tough to lose again because he got lost with Armstead, Buckner, Bosa, Ford, all those guys. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but he's just as important as any of them to their defensive line play.
Big time, man. Big time. 2 sacks last season, 11 games. Every season he's been in the league, his tackles have gone up. My thought process is similar to what you had said, Ann. He's probably the most underappreciated player on that D-line. His stats don't show how dominant he has been, especially this past season. But he does his job. He did his job the last couple seasons well enough that the stars on that D-line were able to shine and stand out. And I feel like that this is probably going to be his chance because there's going to be a lot of focus on D4. There's going to be a ton of focus on Nick Bosa. They're going to be looking at Armstead a lot. Like it's going to be the thing. They're going to be paying attention to those 3 guys in the D-line, which is going to put him in a position where he's going to have some more one-on-one opportunities and chances to demonstrate how dominant he is as a player. Scary, like terrifying at first. Glad that nothing too serious. He's only, not too serious. He's in concussion protocol, but glad it's something that they can monitor. And as long as he's able to stay healthy and keep that head okay, keep that head right here, he should be back by season start and hopefully even before then and getting some reps in. And he'll probably get, I imagine, a couple more maintenance days just to make sure he's good.
Right. Speaking of the defense, the 49ers brought in several players for workouts. One of those players is safety Jonathan Cyprien. Horst, what do you think about the signing of Jonathan Cyprien?
I found it really interesting. I think it clearly shows they are not as happy with the backup safety situation as people think they are. I know the press was blowing it up that Marcel Harris had 2 interceptions in 2 days, but you don't sign a guy like Cyprien if you're not at least giving him a fair opportunity to make the team. The guy's got 71 career starts. He's never been a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro, but he was a high-round draft pick, a solid starter. And the last couple of years he's been injured. He's only played 15 games in the last 2 years. But he's definitely played at a pretty high level in the NFL before. So that he's not the kind of guy you sign just as a camp body. So I think there's real interest in him pushing Marcel Harris for that backup strong safety spot. And I think it shows that maybe they aren't that happy with him.
Yeah, 4 of his 6 seasons, 75-plus tackles, which was pretty impressive. So he's been really good in the box wherever he's been. He's been really good at coming up and stopping guys in the running game. You look at his statistics, though, in terms of the pass game, the last 3 or 4 years has been rough for him. The passer rating has gone up pretty much every year over the last 3 years. I know he's been dealing with some injuries and some other stuff. He really hasn't been huge in the pass game since his rookie season. But like you guys said, he's had some good years. He's done some really good stuff. He's been a solid player, and I think that's really what they're looking for is just consistency. They want consistency behind the starters, especially with some of the injuries they've had. They're moving some pieces around. Jimmy Ward, with if something happens to Kwan long term, Kwan, he may be moving into that type of a role, which means they're going to need someone to step in and play when they're not in those type of sets. So again, I don't think it's not something that moves the needle, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially for these young safeties that we have. Their job isn't as secure as everyone thought it was, like Horst had said.
I like the move. Robert Saleh has experience with him from Jacksonville, so he's very familiar with him and how he plays in the system. So he's already knows the system, so he can come in and make an instant impact, and they'll be able to get a good idea of how he's going to fit in right away. I think this is a telling sign of what they think of Marcel Harris. I think they're trying to decide if Marcel Harris is good enough to make this team. And I think a lot of people forget that last year Marcel Harris didn't make the initial 53-man roster, that they had to bring him back. So I think that they're making sure that they have the best 53 guys they can possibly have. And this was a move where they looked and saw, you know what, maybe there's an upgrade that needs to be made here. And he's the perfect kind of guy to bring in that already understands the system, is a well-known commodity, and maybe he can make a few plays for the 49ers. I would have been curious to see him play in preseason. It would have been fun to kind of see the difference in how they play these guys. But I think that they know what they're doing. I think they know who they got and what to expect.
The 49ers also signed strong safety / linebacker Evan Foster. Alex, what do you think about this, and why would the 49ers add 2 safeties?
Just kind of things we've already kind of mentioned and discussed. I don't think there's as much confidence or comfort with what the young safeties that we have been doing maybe in this first few weeks of training camp. And so Saleh, Shanahan are looking at it going, we need to get some fresh blood in here and some guys who have some experience, and a guy like Evan, who's a rookie, who was undrafted, and he had some bright moments at Syracuse, but nothing really stands out when you look at his stat sheet in terms of his level of play. He was a consistent player in the ACC, consistent player for that secondary in Syracuse, but nothing huge. So he's hungry. He's going to be a guy who's hungry. He's got something to prove. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and they're bringing a guy like him in to see if he can't stand out from the rest of the pack with some of these other young guys and solidify himself as a roster spot or even just a practice squad spot this year. The Cyprien signing is more of a, hey, you guys aren't safe. The young guys that are on the roster that have been around for a couple of years, you're not safe. It's time to step up and show something. Otherwise, you won't be here. You won't be active come season. You won't be on the 53-man roster. Sorry, hate to break it to you. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. We got to get over that hump. We got to make sure every position is locked down. So I think just adding the second safety and adding a guy like Foster is just trying to give him an extra little kick in the butt.
This was the signing that made me think X's and O's wise there's probably going to be some changes in the secondary, because I think maybe the 49ers are planning on playing a more of a 3-safety look. So maybe you're going to actually take Quan Alexander and Greenlaw off the field and put one of these type of guys in that position, maybe improve coverage from a safety spot. So you might see maybe sets where you have Jimmy Ward, if he's playing the slot, Jimmy Ward's out there. So maybe even a 4-safety look, Jimmy Ward, Cyprien, Jaquiski Tart, something like that. And then also have Tarvarius Moore. So I think they're going to look at different things because they're going to run different coverages than we've seen. They're going to mix it up more than we've ever seen. So I'm curious to see if this is maybe a shift in that. Maybe their nickel's going to look a little bit different. Maybe their dime's going to look little bit different because they needed to replace DJ Reed. So maybe these are the moves that they need to make to get where they're going to go. With the new secondary coach, now you're looking at possibly different things happening. And I like it. I mean, I'm curious to see what they do. I mean, do I think this is the guy? Probably not. But I do like that it gave an idea of what maybe they're thinking with it being a safety/linebacker.
Well, Evan Foster is a guy that would have been a 4th, 5th round pick had he not got injured towards the end of his senior year at Syracuse. He's a 3-year starter. He seems to be a little bit more of the Fred Warner linebacker mold. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds, and he's just now healthy after getting injured, so that's why he hasn't been in camp with anyone. I don't think he's a threat to make the 53-man, but I do think he's a guy that has a shot at the practice squad if he comes in and shows out. I think he's a guy that they must have been pretty high on because they brought him in, they said, within a week of him being medically cleared to play, so they must have had their eye on him, at least, throughout the draft process. But, yeah, I think he's more of a camp body, like Alex said, bringing a fiery young guy. And he's got a chance at making the practice squad. I don't expect Evan Foster to ever play in a game this year or even be on the 53-man. But I think he has a decent shot at the practice squad.
So, as a consequence of these two signings, the 49ers cut cornerback DeMarcus Acey, linebacker Jonas Griffith. And did this surprise you?
It did a little bit, actually, because I thought these were young guys that maybe had some potential, maybe an outside chance. I didn't think AC was going to make the roster, but I think there was always a possibility that Griffith could, I don't know, do something. I think preseason really was going to eliminate any hope of that. So it did surprise me that they were gone so fast. I probably shouldn't have been surprised because of the way everything is going this year. Everything is crazy, and you're having to make decisions a lot quicker than you would have liked to have made them in the past. I think both these guys still could end up on the practice squad down the road. But, yeah, they had to do it. They had to make the move. Ultimately, I'm okay with it. Coaches, know what they see in training camp. And so, yep, make the move. Do what you got to do. Upgrade any position, every position. Competition's good. I like it.
I'm surprised as well. I thought both these guys were pretty talented guys for undrafted players. I think what it tells you with Griffith is they've seen what they wanted to see from Griffith, and now Evan Foster might come in and work at the same position he was working at, and don't be surprised if you see one of those two on the practice squad. So if you see Foster, I doubt you would see Griffith. If you see Griffith, I doubt they would bring back Foster. I think it's kind of a tryout between those two, and they've seen what they needed to see from Griffith, and there's no preseason games to put him in, so let's work out somebody else. AC, I'm a little surprised because he was kind of highly touted for an undrafted guy, and it's not like they brought in another corner to replace him like these other guys. So that's telling to me that we probably won't see DeMarcus AC again.
Yeah, and you guys saw, if you listen to the Project 53, I had AC making the roster because the things I've been hearing made me lean towards, if there's a position we're going to keep extra at, it's probably going to be a position like receiver and DB because there's some uncertainty there. With them cutting AC, kind of shakes everything up for me. Maybe they aren't as confused or concerned about that DB's position so much as they're concerned about that safety position. So they know the plan that they have for the cornerback position, and AC, he ain't a part of it. So could he end up on the practice squad? Potentially, but them cutting him this early, I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to end up making something like the practice squad. Jonas Griffith, I think, was the only one that kind of shocked me in like the, oh my God, already sort of thing. I was expecting him to kind of push a little bit more, and if he was going to get cut, it was going to be closer towards the end of cuts, not at the beginning. So yeah, like you said, there's obviously something that they want to see out of Foster, and as Horst had said, maybe there's some sort of competition there. You hate to not have preseason games for this reason, because young guys like this, if they're preseason games and this is a regular year, are still currently probably have a job and a chance to show out and a chance to prove everybody wrong. Without those preseason games, you got to make these rash decisions. You got to make these quick decisions. You got to pull the trigger, and the 49ers are pulling the trigger.
Let me throw this out there to you. What if they're really high on these two guys, but they know they're not going to make the roster? So if they kept him around a long time, other teams would think the 49ers are really high on these guys. So instead, they cut them early,
60 chess,
making people think they're not high on these guys, and these guys don't have the potential. And then when it comes time, they sign him.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if that's what he was doing.
I'm just throwing it out there. It might not be true.
It could be though. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And again, it would just go to the coaching staff and the front office thinking on a level that other teams aren't thinking on. They know this is a different year, so you have to act different, you have to think different, you have to prepare different, and they're already doing it. If that's what's going on, man, then tip the cap.
Bravo, yeah.
Bravo, Shanny. Bravo.
There is probably some trouble on the interior O-line. Spencer Long has retired. There's an injury to Ben Garland. He was going to be the starter projected because Weston Richburg is going to be out. Kyle Shanahan admitted this week he's going to be on the PUP list to start the season, which means he'll at least miss the first 6 games. So the 49ers go out and they sign center Ronis Grasu. Yeah, what do we think about this, guys? Horst, what do you think about all these injuries, the movement, and then the signing of Grasu?
I think as long as no one else gets injured, they're still okay. I think Brunskill will be fine at center for a while, and I think Tom Compton is a serviceable starting right guard. He started a lot of games in the league. Is it the ideal situation for them? No. But I don't think there's a huge difference between Garland and Brunskill, to be honest. Hopefully there's not a huge difference between either of them and Tom Compton. But where you get the problem there is you're getting awfully thin. Ronis Grasu, I remember him at Oregon. He was a big name. I don't really know much. I knew he was in the NFL, but I don't know much about what he's done or remember hearing his name. Honestly, I'm a little surprised they didn't just sign Daniel Kilgore instead of him, because Daniel Kilgore is a trustworthy guy to put in a game. He's got a ton of career starts. So I'm a little surprised they signed Grasu over Kilgore. But, I mean, that's the move I would make. But I sit on my couch on Sundays and they get paid to be there. So, but I think right now, if everyone else stays healthy, they're okay still. If we have another guy go down, we're in some trouble because their backups right now are starting, and now their backups are going to be guys that probably shouldn't be on the roster. So that's the big thing right there. I still would bring in Daniel Kilgore if I was them.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I know that the 49ers reached out to Kilgore. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't pull the trigger and get him in and sign him a deal. So there must be something else going on there. Maybe he's not 100% ready yet. He's not in shape, and they're waiting for him to get up to speed. I'm not too worried about the center position with Garland. I think Brunskill at center is probably not too much of a downgrade. We talked about Tom Compton. There's rave reviews right now about McKivitz and how he's looked so far with Brunskill moving to center and the reps that he has been taking at that position. I think we're going to have a nice, interesting battle there between Compton and McKivitz for that spot. Let's hope that this Garland injury is just 3 weeks. That's what I would say. Let's hope to God that's the case, and we can get Brunskill back at the guard position, because we've seen him, what he's looked like at right guard when we've given him a chance, and he's looked really well. I would much rather prefer Garland at center with Brunskill playing right guard than having to have Brunskill at center and we're flopping there with Compton. I think that would be more ideal than the inverse. I think it's more ideal for Brunskill to be a guard. Ronis Grasu, 8 games in 2015, 6 games in 2017, 3 games last season, and he made an appearance in a game last year for Baltimore, and that's about it. So nothing about it stands out.
He's an end of the roster guy.
Yeah, if he's a guy that we're having to rely on if something happens to Brunskill, oh boy, not comfortable there, and we are definitely thinning out. We got some things that we got to address, but I think they're waiting to find out a little bit more about what's going on with Garland before they panic and pull the trigger on something. I think they kind of want to see how he progresses before they make a decision, be a little more thoughtful. I think they have some time to do that. At this point, only time will tell.
It's an absolute sign that they're going to have Garland back for the beginning of the year. I think that they would have brought Kilgore in if Garland's high ankle sprain would have been worse than what it is. So this signals that, Garland's going to be back. I think the scary part is is that Brunskill is not doing very well at center. He's struggling. You have to make calls. It's a different type of position to play. You have more responsibility with the snap and then still getting to where you need to get. I know from experience, Horse, you do too, playing center is not easy.
Oh.
A lot of times, you look at it and the most important thing is get the quarterback the ball, yes, but you have a lot of responsibilities. A lot of times you have to make calls, so you have to see things, and Brunskill's still inexperienced. Brunskill is a good right guard, and I think he would have been the starter at right guard. So if he's playing center, the line is weaker because of it, because Colton McKivitz should not be a starting lineman this year. I'm glad that he's playing well, and people are excited about Colton McKivitz, but he's not a starter in the NFL in his rookie season. So they need to get Garland back so Brunskill can play right guard. If Brunskill's the backup until Weston Richburg comes back, great. I have no problems with this. If for some reason Weston Richburg is going to miss even more time, I don't want Brunskill having to move over to center at some time during the season. Sign Daniel Kilgore. Let's get this done, and let's be secure with the interior offensive line, because for God's sakes, we have probably the best left tackle in football, and McGlinchey's a stud. Laken Tomlinson is going to be an all-pro this year. Let's get excited.
Did Trent Williams say that?
I saw it, and I was getting excited because Laken Tomlinson's been doing work. He's been studding Kinlaw up. He's been playing really good on that our offensive line, and I think that if we can get Brunskill in the right spot, this offensive line can be a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. But if he's playing center, we're not. We're maybe 15 to 20. That's the difference between getting the guys in the right spot and guys playing out of position. So they need to make them. They need to get this together, and hopefully it's Garland being back in time.
I remember playing center, how hard it is, to snap and go block a one tech. Could you imagine if that one tech was Aaron Donald?
Oh God,
no.
I mean,
I don't even want to think about something like that.
Fetal position.
Vince Wilfork.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean, though, too, is that right there could be the difference between us being. I mean, how many games early in the season last year were 1-score games, field goal games? And that's the difference between us pulling out all those W's and losing a couple of them, and instead of being 13-3 or, anywhere from not you'd be sitting at 500. You'd be sitting at 500 through the first 6 games of the season. You're 3-3 instead of being 5-1 or 4-2. I don't think it's that serious because we didn't do anything drastic, but they're thinking about it. It's in the back of their heads. It has to be now.
All right, guys, chalk another one up.
Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about Brandon Aiyuk and Jalen Hurd's injuries. Do you think they're going to be devastating to the 49ers wide receiving corps? Also, if you need more 49ers cutback in your life, click one of the boxes on the right. We've got a couple really good episodes there that you can check out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.